Otafest listeners, and welcome to the newest episode of the podcast. This is Jay, and I've got Angelo and Nancy with me today.
Hello.
Hello.
This is the November edition, the 1st of November.
You had to think about that. And
Yeah,
this is
I sure
airing on
did.
the 4th of November.
And we've just finished our Extra Life marathon, which was yesterday. We raised over 1,500 Canadian from our 12-hour charity gaming marathon for Extra Life.
That's over
Surpassing
100
our
an
goal.
hour.
Yeah, it's actually
Which is
wow, it was insane. Surpassing our goal of $1,000 and supporting sick children and their families at the Alberta Children's Hospital. The video on demand for Twitch will be up for 30 days on our Otafest archive. And if you're interested in adding a couple of bucks yourself, you can still head over to otafest.com/extralife because you know how much every dollar counts towards such a meaningful cause. Thank you again for everyone who watched, came by, supported, and everyone who helped us on the back end streaming wise. My partner Bayfar, and just honestly, all the love that we got was amazing and totally worth the grind, as it were.
So how was it?
It was good. We blasted through our goal. Everyone was we had some very active people in chat, which is always great. Apparently we did really well in the game. The game is supposed to, like, for a full playthrough, it's supposed to be about 10 hours, 10 and a half hours, and we blasted through it in about 9.5.
Oh, so you did actually finish the game.
Yeah. Some people even told us that, like, there were some people who were definitely coming by that I don't think were necessarily part of our normal Otafest audience, but they wanted to watch Soma being played.
Nice.
And they told us that things like, you guys really blasted through this part. Like, this part is especially considered to be difficult. And like, they were like, in when you first started the game, I think there's a hard mode as well, but there's either safe mode or normal mode, and we chose normal just because, just regular playthrough.
Oh, because you're not babies.
We're not babies.
You're not babies.
Shut up, Angelo.
But we were told that some of the parts that we did really well on in general were parts that some people had so much difficulty with, they created safe mode for it, apparently.
Wow.
And I was like, interesting. But at the same time, like, that's like a little bit of a pride thing as, like, someone who plays games a lot, and I'd like to think that we're okay at games between Bayfar and I. But at the same time, it's kind of it's nice to hear that a little bit and succeed during the marathon. We finished, like I said, with about a few hours to go, about 2.5 hours to go for the marathon. So we closed it out and played a bunch of Jackbox games with the audience. So
Nice.
That was great. I haven't gotten into Jackbox for a while, and I haven't played the new one yet. I don't know if anyone else has.
I have played Jackbox 7, and it is fun.
Yeah, I've heard it's
what
pretty
new things are in
sturdy.
it?
Angelo?
What was that?
What new things are in it?
So the best game, absolute best game, undisputed best game in Jackbox 7 is a minigame called Champed Up. And so it's a drawing game. If you remember the t-shirt game from, I think it was Jackbox 3, I don't even remember.
Yep, TKO.
It's very similar to that in that you are just drawing something. But whereas TKO, it left it a lot more open-ended, which actually I think made things harder. It almost gives you like a drawing prompt. So the idea is you are to draw the champion of a thing. Sometimes you are drawing the champion of cuteness, or the champion of depression, or the champion of student loans, or the champion of student loan forgiveness. But you are to draw this character of the champion of some random subject. And then that gets sent off to another player. And they have no idea what that character is the champion of. So they have to use their big old brain and deduce what they're trying to defend and how they are going to draw an underdog character to defeat it.
Oh, jeez.
Yes.
Oh,
To
jeez.
defeat
That
it?
sounds
Like, they
hard.
And so then there's the face-off where the audience votes on which character deserves to be the new champion of the thing. Is it the returning champion or is it the underdog? And it is just amazing. It is so ridiculously fun, and because it gives you the drawing prompt to begin with, it's not like the t-shirt one where everyone's just drawing like big old things. I was about to say a word that I probably shouldn't say.
Completely safe for work things.
Not safe for work things. It turns
Absolutely
into,
safe for work things.
I mean,
only safe
yes.
for work.
I've
things.
still drawn
So
non-safe
safe
for
for
work things and champed up, but at the very least, they were relevant to the prompt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
but
so
yeah,
another
that
drawing
is-
game.
That is absolutely the best game in the Jackbox. Like, other than that, you've got Quiplash, which is always fun.
Oh, there's a new one? Interesting.
Another one of the games that is really, really good is you have to present a speech based on a thing. So at the beginning of the round, everybody comes up with prompts on what to create for a speech. And then you are delivered random prompts and you have to choose one. And you have to start giving a speech based on this prompt. But it's not just you. Another player becomes your assistant. And so they start giving like slides, like word slides and picture slides that you have to then roll into the meaning of your speech. It's like
Oh, no.
it's like bullshitting practice mixed with public speaking 101. It is, for some people, absolutely terrifying.
Yeah,
but
that
if you
sounds
have
like teleprompter improv.
just enough liquor in you to
Oh, dear.
lubricate the wheels of your mind, it can be amazing.
Why does everything feel extra lubricated in here?
Extra
You could-
lubricated.
There's never enough lube. There's
Oh,
always lube
boy.
in the banana shack.
But yeah, that's what Jackbox 7 is like. It is a thoroughly good time.
Okay. I mean, generally
Sounds
they
fun.
are. There's always like a weak game or two in a Jackbox, but generally speaking, they're all fairly playable. And liking a game is also just very subjective. Like, some people dominate at games and they make it really fun for everyone else to play. But if everyone's not feeling a certain game, even though it might be a good game in theory, it's like it really brings down like, oh, we need to
That's
move on
true.
from this game.
Like, I absolutely love Madverse City, and I think it's Jackbox 5. I don't know. It's the giant robot rap battle game, and that game is amazing. But
With the right people.
with the right people, it's great. If the people that you're playing with just aren't that into it, then
It's real sad.
It just turns into a sad time.
But yeah. Speaking of which, did you guys do anything for Halloween proper? Because it was kind of a weird year. For
So
our
about that
celebrations.
Jackbox
Yeah.
and
Let
that
me guess, you played a
lubricating
lot
alcohol.
of Jackbox.
Yeah.
So I drank rum, I played Among Us, and I played Jackbox with friends over Discord. That was the entirety of my Halloween. We did have a bowl of candy just in case any enterprising little plague carriers came to the door, but none did.
We didn't get any kids at all. Doorbell didn't even ring.
Only
Like,
adults.
Didn't even get like a mistake in case of, oh, the lights are on, let's ring the doorbell. Like nothing.
Wow.
But you're in an older neighborhood too, and not like there.
Yes.
While there are schools there, the neighborhood itself may not have a lot of children. I don't actually know for sure, but anytime I've been in that area, I've never seen a lot of kids.
That's totally fair. Jay, did anyone come to your apartment?
Did
Well,
you throw
I went-
candy down from your balcony at passing by children?
Get out
Beam
of
them
here,
right in the
children!
eye?
My treats are my tricks.
You do have a balcony. You could very easily just like sprinkle goods down on people below.
Just throw them and try to get them right between the
I
eyes.
could load. I have a BB gun. I could load nerds or like gobstoppers into them and just be like,
Oh,
take that.
jeez.
The problem is that you're too high up. You're like on the 5th floor or something. So by the time it gets to the sidewalk level, it won't have the momentum because of air drag. You have to be the crazy
reaches
guy
terminal
with
velocity
the
and then slows down.
full-size chocolate bars. You have
Right.
to be getting them
Ooh.
right in the face with that.
But-
Yikes.
The other
So
thing
what
is
I ended
because
up
when you leave a
actually
bruise,
doing- yeah.
if you leave a bruise but they get a full-size chocolate bar out of it, no one's going to complain.
But no, what I ended up actually doing was I went to a friend's place. There was just 4 of us. We were just chilling, watching really crappy movies. We watched
Nice.
Hansel and Gretel, like Witch Hunters, and
I've actually heard
Abraham-
of that.
yeah, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
I absolutely love that
Oh.
movie.
That one's actually not
yes.
not the worst. It's
No,
it's one of those.
I love that movie.
It's it's actually not too poorly done. Let's put it that way.
Like,
And
it is the dumbest
the
premise
production value,
executed
not that bad either.
perfectly.
Yeah, and some other like crappy movies. One was like some weird French climbing movie that was also horror because all the equipment kept failing, and it was kind of dumb. But it was French, and then they overdubbed English over it.
Ooh, was it
Yay.
good
Very bad.
dubbing?
Why did you buy all the equipment on Wish.com?
Yeah, exactly. And we
Why
just
did you
played
get
board
everything
games.
from AliExpress?
We played board games, but yeah, no kids showed up. Even though the apartment in question was actually on ground floor, and there was a door that was available for kids. But we also weren't really like, we had candy if kids were gonna come, but we also didn't really have like pumpkins and like lights that would be like, come here or whatever. But I did hear some friends that lived in like suburban neighborhoods where they're more like the starter neighborhoods with those young families. I had one of our friends had like 70 kids, they said.
70.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. That's what happens
So-
when you're in starter neighborhoods.
We're all inner city folks. So
I didn't do anything for Halloween specifically. I just had a cast meeting for a production that I recently joined, and that was a lot of fun.
that's good.
Mhm.
Can you talk about any of that?
I don't
other
know
than
if you
that?
guys know. I don't know if you guys know what a cold read is, but it's essentially what happens when all your actors show up and you give them a script they've never seen, never proofread, have no preparation for, and then you just say, "Okay, now go," and we read. And apparently,
So like the podcast.
yes, just like
Very
no,
much like
no,
the
not at all like the
podcast.
podcast.
Except
no,
we don't
because
have a
the
script.
podcast. We don't have a script, but we have like
we have like 3 bullet
topics.
points.
Yes, but we have like 0 preparation. We've never seen the script. We don't even know what's happening this episode.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
but anyway,
Let me
no,
let me paraphrase to see if I understood what you told me about it.
okay.
According to what Nancy told me about it, it's basically a way for the studio to not have to hire proofreaders or editors.
I mean, in some ways, that's not totally incorrect.
I'm just being a
Um,
shitter.
It's not totally incorrect. As an actor who's working off of a script, a poorly placed or an incorrectly placed like comma will throw you off every time you do that line. And so fixing up the script to make it really readable and, at least have space for you to write your own notes, like it's scriptwriting 101, but it's still really important for your voice actors.
It actually sounds
Right.
super important because, like, how should I word this? For some people, just random punctuation might not make sense to them or might trip them up. So maybe
yeah,
even
absolutely.
if you're making an edit that's not grammatically correct, if it makes it better for the voice actor, maybe that's the right thing to do, right?
Absolutely. Like
Yeah,
this
that makes
isn't
sense.
this isn't just running it through like a grammar going, oh, there should be a comma here and this should be the Oxford
Right.
comma here, and like that's not what it is. It's whatever helps the actors read
It's
that
for
line
the
better.
actor's interpretation first and foremost. Whether it makes any sense to anybody else is like a side benefit, maybe.
Yeah, and even like basic tenets of grammar still hold though, like spelling. If you use of versus off, that's going to throw people off if they're reading the script.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
that makes
and
sense.
if I'm like reading a fan fiction or some captioned image or something on screen or on stream, I should say, and there is there's a misspelling in there, I go out of my way to emphasize the misspelling just
I do
so
too.
that whoever wrote this feels extra
Knows.
bad, even though they
They
have
know
no
what they've
idea
done.
who I am and they've never seen me before. They have heard me before, but they used should of instead of should have, and I am never going to let them live this down. No, not today.
True. It's true. But again, because this is a production where we're going to have to be like recording our lines and reading a script, it's not a good idea to have stuff like permanently embedded in the script that you're going to just trip people up with.
Exactly.
So yeah, that was a lot of fun. I got to read my character for the first time. I think this is the first time she's shown up in the show proper, so it was an interesting introduction / teaser, because I think we're working on the pilot plus a teaser at the moment.
Nice.
Do you know when, like, I assume you can't reveal the title or too many working details.
That is
do
correct.
you have an idea of when we could expect to see your production released to the masses?
That depends on how much of an episode buffer they expect for when they're releasing. Like, you know how when you do like a serialized comic strip that's released online, like most artists will have like a release schedule, like every Saturday or every Thursday or every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And they build up a buffer, and then there's just like an automated scheduled release for each one of those strips. It will be similar to that, but I don't know what the buffer is to take into account A, production and like edits, B, doing the actual animation. It is an animated series, and someone or a team is going to have to go and like animate all of the prelay that we record first and foremost, and then however long it takes for them to build, probably like a 3 to 4 episode buffer, maybe, unless they really like, unless this production company likes to fly by the seat of their pants, then we'll just release episodes as we get them. But I would assume that the first episode is probably going to be sometime in Q1 next year.
Okay. Cool.
We start recording in November, so this was just us getting a glimpse of our characters, reading a couple of the introductory pilot scenes, and then, you know, some teaser material in the back.
Nice.
Do you, like, is that a question that I asked weird? Like, do you get much working details post your involvement? Like, you know, oh, your character is da-da-da-da-da, and you get to do this. But, like, do they ever really bother to let you in on, like, what's an expected release date for show or game or commercial or whatever it might be? Or is that just not a great question in general?
I think it's different for every production company out there. And animation is very different from like shooting a live action film or even like a show. Like there's definitely a lot more in play, because now you have to have people and set and props and, you know, all of the inner workings of what happens behind the camera when you're filming actual people. This is going to be a little bit less resource intensive because we're not film actors. We're just, you know, giving our voices to an animation. But like, you know, from watching animation is a very intensive and long process. I think at most actors will expect there will be a release announcement and possibly dates ahead of time, like ahead of when those dates would have been made public, because actors like to have release parties, and we like to at least see what happens before it goes out. So at the very least, I expect to be given a release date for the pilot episode. I don't know exactly how much like more scheduled details we would get after that, but like the pilot episode is absolutely an excuse for a launch party.
Absolutely. That sounds like a good time.
And it'll be interesting because when we release, I assume COVID will still be around, and I don't know how we'll manage it other than we'll all just be having a big old party over Discord, maybe.
Oh, of course.
I mean, yeah.
I can't imagine it going away anytime soon.
I wonder why. Speaking of the whole anime thing, and there is definitely some very important
big
news.
moves in the anime world.
Yeah, Sony making moves, making money moves.
Big gears rolling around
on
at the speed of
Crunchyroll.
sound.
Your anime will be brought to you by Sony, from courtesy of Crunchyroll, being purchased by Sony for almost $1 billion.
$1 billion.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
how has Sony been historically with these kinds of acquisitions?
The only thing I can tell you for sure that I know without any other business knowledge is that sometimes when you watch anime and at the title of the show, it's all like, this show is sponsored by Sony. Usually shows up in one of those little,
they actually do.
Company
There's
names.
like Pony Canyon and Sony and a few other shows and companies.
So I have to assume.
So I
that
did
Sony
read the
probably
article.
Sony is probably not too they're not exactly newbies to the whole thing. You know, it's the distribution side that they're not as huge on. It's not like Sony has a streaming service, but now they do.
So
and, you know, it's very centric towards their audience, I would say.
About
so
that,
it's a pretty smart move.
So Sony is no stranger to the world of anime at all.
Yep.
By no means are they a stranger to the world of anime. If we take a look at the history of Crunchyroll, Crunchyroll started with a partnership between them and like Funimation, right? And then eventually there was the AT&T acquisition or something. I believe that's what caused the partnership with Funimation to either crumble or just be dissolved or what. But then Funimation started their own anime streaming service, and so suddenly there was a lot of stuff on Crunchyroll that was no longer there. It was pulled over to Funimation.
Right.
And so that's been the status quo for, I think, a year and a half or 2 years or something like that. And now AT&T, looking to consolidate some of their debt, is like, you know what? Let's sell off this anime business. We don't want that anymore. Let's sell it off to Sony for $1.5 billion. And then Sony was like, no, maybe 957 million. Let's be reasonable, lads. And so that seems to be going through. The exact numbers aren't public, but that seems to be going through. Guess who else Sony owns? Funimation.
Do they?
Yes,
I
they
actually
do.
didn't
They
know that.
absolutely do. And so, who knows? Maybe this will be like a return to form for Crunchyroll. Maybe they'll get consolidated. Maybe Sony will keep them separate for reasons unknown. The world of business is a confusing one, and it's not for us
Right.
to speculate on.
It's
But
true.
if I
So
were a
it's-
gambling man, and I play Fate Go, so I probably am, I would not be surprised if Funimation and Crunchyroll really got back
Reunited.
together.
Makes sense to me.
It's
honestly.
so it's Sony, not Sony Pictures, right?
Sony, I suppose. Everything just said Sony.
Okay.
Yeah, everything that I saw specifically just mentioned Sony. It wasn't like Sony Television or Sony Motion Pictures or some other subsidiary specifically. But even if it was, so here is the thing that's sort of, if you go a little bit deeper, right? So everyone knows Disney's a thing and Disney Plus is a thing, therefore, and then they've moved all their, like they acquired Fox in the last year, and then they moved all that content over to Disney Plus. Sony has some very heavy-handed IPs. They still control, technically Spider-Man is one.
Yep.
And that's absolutely huge, especially in this day and age. Not to mention that it's not just about movies, because the Miles Morales game that's coming out on PS5, that's going to be an exclusive, just as the prior Spider-Man game was on PS4. There is a lot of depth to this, and it's not just about its streaming service to anime, but what other content it could possibly develop that it already owns IP-wise, such as Spider-Man content might only be found, like if they were going to make a Spider-Man anime or a Spider-Man American TV show, because obviously they can go either side, it's going to be on a Sony streaming service.
So Crunchyroll isn't a stranger to streaming live action shows too. Like, I know I've seen
Yes.
dramas on there as well. It really wouldn't be outside of their purview to be streaming, Spider-Man shows or anything else.
I feel like if they were to do that, they would put it on VRV.
What's that?
People in the audience, correct me if I am wrong, but Crunchyroll on its own has two separate streaming services. There's Crunchyroll itself and then VRV. VRV is more for the general Asian media content. So
Right.
whereas like things like Kamen Rider or just things like that, would never be on Crunchyroll because it's more for anime. It could go on VRV, or you could put K-dramas or things like that. To my understanding,
I just realized
in the past few years, VRV is actually where a lot of the Crunchyroll development has gone.
Right. I just realized something. Like, it's such an easy connect the dots, but I just, like, it blew my mind for half a second there.
Okay.
PS5 and PS4 and all that stuff, you have to go on the Sony network, right? Like, you have to buy...
Of course.
They're probably going to bundle like a Crunchyroll membership to that.
Oh, like a PSN plus Crunchyroll subscription?
Yeah. And I don't think anyone else
surprised.
offers that. Like, I remember at one point, like, your Switch or your Wii or something could have Netflix, but that's not remotely the same thing.
What was that anime by Studio Bones that was launched exclusively on PlayStation Plus on the PS3?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
That is a trivia question that I could not answer. I couldn't even imagine.
Zammed! That's what it was.
Okay.
Zammed Lost Memories. It was okay. It was okay.
Fair enough.
It kind of felt like just Eureka 7, but different.
But yeah, that actually is going to be pretty cool. I mean, I'm not exactly a huge fan of Sony, but that's only because they do fall into that proprietary hardware.
Oh my god, is
sort
that
of
because you're
pitfall.
some Nintendo-year-old who only likes Nintendo consoles and doesn't like Sony and Xbox?
I only
can't
want
believe you.
universal connectors and chargers and memory
Yeah,
cards.
same.
That's pretty much it.
And Sony doesn't like that. They want to make their own stuff.
But yeah, that's right. Sorry, just going back to IPs that Sony owns. They also own Insomniac Games, who made like Sunset Overdrive, Spyro.
Wait, what?
Oh, yeah, Spyro.
Oh, they must have bought Insomniac Games after they made
They
that one
bought
game
them
for
in
Xbox.
like 2019.
Yes. Okay.
So like very.
I was be like,
recently, obviously.
Sunset Overdrive. That was an Xbox One exclusive. What?
Yeah.
No.
Ratchet and Clank is also. They're shaping up here. Honestly, this move is a pretty good move, because like Sony as it is. So if you're not aware, and I can't blame you because not everyone follows things like market penetration, but like Microsoft does not have very strong market penetration in Asia and especially Japan. It's not that bad in Korea because PC gaming is stronger in Korea, but it's not very strong in Japan either. Like PC gaming and Xboxes are rare outside of like they're not really at home things. You can go out to a net cafe and play your games there if you really wanted to. That's still a very real avenue, although coronavirus is another thing, but we don't have to talk about that. That being said, Sony really owns a large chunk of that Japanese market. And when I say large chunk, like if I had to spitball, I'm guessing 70 to 80%, which is huge. Anime
the rest
being
of
what
them
it
being
is,
Nintendo players.
Anime being what it is, I would have to assume that this is like all it does is really consolidate their hold in the Asian market, plus people who are already invested in the Crunchyroll / Funimation experience, streaming experience in America and everywhere else around the world. They're getting, if they buy a PS5 and they want to go online on the PS5 and they get a Crunchyroll / whatever anime streaming account, plus all the other things that you can get like from being a PlayStation Online subscriber, because I know like you got like Fall Guys was free on that recently. That's a really strong play by them that nobody else, like Nintendo won't really penetrate that market because that's not what they're interested into, getting into streaming and multimedia sort of pickups.
I mean, if
doesn't really
Nintendo
fall
tried
into
to get into
Xbox
streaming, they would just have the video come on your Wii. Or no, Wii.
On
Wow,
your
I feel
Switch.
old. On your Switch, and then
Yeah.
you'd have to use your phone to get the audio.
Ooh, I
Don't
remember
even get
that
into that.
flub.
Don't even get into that.
Yikes.
Nancy, what
I
were
don't
you gonna
know.
say?
It'd basically be the Cisco WebEx of anime.
Right.
Yoicks.
But yeah,
I was just thinking about how I don't think Xbox has a whole lot of play in this field either.
No. And yeah, that's actually really
Extremely
good for
smart.
because it's not about the Asian market. They already know where they're at in the Asian market. They're not really going to drop off. But it's absolutely a play for the American and European markets and anyone who wants to be into anime and waifus and Final Fantasy and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, is Crunchyroll even much of a thing in Japan? The whole point is like it's simulcast and subbed right away for like mostly the Western market.
Maybe not for Japan, but it could be for Korea, it could be for China, it could be for the Philippines, which is a huge market. It could be for Australia, like Oceania in general. There's a lot to do with.
Is it fair to roll Australia into like the Western market? Like, I guess at
yes
that
and
point,
no.
I would have to say more like the Anglosphere.
Sure, but the idea here
Anglosphere.
would be that this is the marketing thread for Sony in this scenario, which is buy a PS5, get PS Online, whatever it's called, I can never remember, and get all this other content, quote unquote, included, as they always say, even though you are paying for it in some way. But that's really quite interesting because, again, Microsoft doesn't have a foothold in it. Nintendo doesn't care. And when I say Microsoft, I am saying Xbox and PC gaming because you can't really separate them anymore. This is really cool. I didn't think it was going to be as in-depth as it could have gotten because we were like, they bought it for $1 billion. That's cool and all. But anyways.
At the very least, Sony can do so much more with Crunchyroll than AT&T ever could.
Or almost any other. Like, even if Microsoft bought it, it would be weird.
It wouldn't be as weird, but I think Sony is better positioned for it.
Well, they have a lot more in the media market as it is, like with
exactly.
Sony,
like the article I read
IPs and
specifically stated that Sony, with this move, wanted to expand their content library more than anything.
Yeah,
they wanted the streaming rights that Crunchyroll had over this anime.
Right. So Kono Bangumi wa all your anime are belong to us. Anyway.
Okurishimasu.
Speaking of games, Cyberpunk 2077 has been delayed another, 3 weeks?
Month.
3 weeks?
It's supposed to come out on the 10th.
3 weeks?
I'm not sad about this at all.
3.
I'm not sad about
First
it. Like,
of all,
being triple of something. Half-Life triple confirmed!
Oh my god.
Oh god. Oh god.
Half-Life cubed. I'm not sad because I'm still trying to build my computer in time for it in the first place. But I am like people. They said a bunch of stuff about crunch that wasn't supposed to happen with CD Projekt Red, and then they got into crunch anyways, and people are understandably upset. The only thing I don't agree with, like, there's no debate on it, is people who are like threatening CD Projekt Red people about the delay of the game.
That's not cool.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
That's absolutely the dumbest thing you could do. There's no reason to do that. There's no reason for them to appeal to you anymore as a company because you are just a bad person. So,
like, anyone, if someone has pre-ordered and they set aside time for it and all of that business, I feel bad for them, but at the same time, like,
that's
come
still on
on
them in a manner of speaking, you know?
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Especially if you took vacation time, but maybe it can be rescheduled. I don't know. Like, for some people it will, for some people it won't.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks. But it's a thing that happens. I'm sorry. Like, that's just it. All it is.
Yep.
And personally, I prefer that they release the game when they feel they're ready to release it than just, trying to stick to some arbitrary deadline because we've already moved it. Now we can't move it anymore, and we need to push this out so people don't get mad at us. It's like, no, I would rather that you push this out when it's ready to be released.
Yeah. To that point, it wasn't so this delay. What they're saying is the game's already been. I think it's called like mastered or like it's in like gold production or something like that. I can't remember the term. I'm sorry.
They're trying to polish off the day one patch, to my understanding.
It's not even that. It's because Cyberpunk is going to release on PS4, Xbox One, Series X, PS5, and PC, and
And
maybe,
Stadia.
and Stadia.
Oh yes, Stadia. I can't forget
Stadia,
that.
that's
Also
still a
bless you.
thing that exists.
Mhm.
And because of that, they're just trying to make sure that the release across the board will be less total crap than if they only develop for like PC or PS5 or something, you know?
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. It wasn't necessarily that they're trying, like, there's gonna be a day one patch, like it's to be expected. But the whole idea here is that the actual launch itself won't be compromised, even if you have to download a little extra, you know, on the day of, as is to be expected nowadays.
They're literally launching for 7 platforms. Like, what can you do?
Right?
Yeah, exactly. I feel that this is justified.
You know, and again, there's just no reason to go crazy over like, oh, how dare you push it back a few weeks or whatever, so that everybody else can experience this game in the same way I want to experience it. I will say the only thing that is like a real downer is that they did have to enter crunch. They've been in crunch for a few weeks at this point. We just didn't talk about it before.
Weeks?
Yeah.
Months?
Months, probably. I mean, weeks transition into months, so yes, many weeks.
Yeah, I remember the announcement that they were entering crunch. I feel bad for them.
Having no real investment in this game so far, I just found it hilarious how people were digging up all the tweets that they made on their social media about how the last delay was going to be the only last delay before launch.
Yes.
And then this happened.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like, if I'm sure, like, CD Projekt Red, I don't want to be an apologist for them. I just feel like that this is not just for CD Projekt Red. This is for every major company out there putting out a major product that people want. If they didn't have to delay it, they wouldn't. But they would also like to be able to produce something worthy for their audiences, number one. Number two, you have to realize that there's a lot more at stake for them than there is. Like, it's not just a decision where like, oh, the game's mostly finished, wherever. It's like publishers are after them, like marketing people, like a bunch of folks depend on the dev side to create and finish the product properly. But they're also being like, well, you know, another game is being released or another major project's coming out and you gotta get it out before then, or you promised the people, so you gotta have it done, release it anyways. Like, there's always pressure, and the bigger you are, the worse pressure that gets, you know?
All things considered, thinking about it, like all the execs, all the management types, they wanted your money yesterday.
Yeah.
And thank God for Anthem showing what happens when execs push out an unfinished product.
That's a great point.
Because now every other game dev can be like, do you want us to make Anthem? Is this what you want to put out? This is what's going to happen if you don't give us this next 3 weeks.
It's true.
It's going to be Anthem 2077.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's an effective threat.
That is an effective threat. So, yeah.
I don't know. Like, at the end of the day, like I said, I don't really want to... Like, I'm looking forward to Cyberpunk, just as a lot of gamers are. But at the same time, I don't have to like the practice. I wish they could avoid it. I don't want to see it happening in general. It has nothing to do with just them. I just want to see people be treated well for the work that they do. Crazy.
Yeah.
I feel like their past announcements should have been far less committal. They should have just been like, you know what? We can guarantee we're coming out before Half-Life 3.
Woof. I don't know, buddy. Cyberpunk's been in development for a long time.
That's more than can be said about Half-Life 3.
That's true. But yeah,
Yikes.
I don't know.
I think Half-Life 3 been on the floor for longer than 2077's been in development.
Yeah, okay, how long has 2077 been in development for again?
I want to say 7, maybe 8 years.
That's fine. Final Fantasy 15 was in development for like 15 years. Totally fine.
That's how they actually name their titles. It's not, everyone thinks it's in sequence, but the first Final Fantasy only took 1 year to make, you understand.
Wasn't Final Fantasy like the studio's last-ditch attempt to save
Yes.
themselves from bankruptcy?
It was. Actually.
Well, I'm really glad they're not saving themselves from bankruptcy anymore.
I'm actually looking up the dev cycle. I said 7 years. I want to say that's right, but maybe not.
I mean, that's like half a Duke Nukem Forever.
And we know how well that game was. Yeah.
Please
Duke
feel free
Nukem
to
Forever,
rehash some of your
another
complaints.
disappointment.
Aw.
Would it be fair to say that Duke Nukem Forever or Anthem was the largest gaming disaster since Atari for the 2600? Or not
know.
since ET for the Atari 2600.
I was gonna say
Right,
I had an Atari
I knew what you were
2600.
mentioning.
First of all, I had an Atari 2600. It was my first console ever. I remember it
Did you have
mainly
ET?
because of the controller. No, I don't think so. But I was gonna say, like, don't crap on the whole console. It was a
No,
fun
no, no.
console. How
No,
dare
no,
you.
no. I am not crapping on the console. I completely misspoke because my brain works faster than my mouth does, usually.
By the way, it was 6 years.
Tell me about it.
It's 2016, but I would argue that officially pre-production was 6 years for Cyberpunk, but if you're talking about the real, like the real pre-talks before even pre-production, it's probably 1 or 2 years before that.
That's actually pretty fair as far as like a large AAA game goes. Like that's actually a lot more development time than most games get, while
Yeah.
still being a realistic development cycle, I think.
But also not. You have to remember that CD Projekt Red is not the biggest studio out there either. They're actually,
course.
Despite the fact that I love their work.
yeah. Anyway, what were we talking about? We were talking about
Nancy's
ET.
experience with
Star Trek Discovery.
yes.
I don't want to say anything that spoils for anybody, particularly if you haven't been keeping up with the show or if you just haven't started watching the new season.
There's only
But
two
I will
things I
say
know about
that
Star
I
Trek
am-
Discovery.
Sorry?
There's only 2 things I know about Star Trek Discovery, so there's no way you're gonna ruin it. Oh, wait, maybe I'm thinking about Picard. Oh well, that's nothing.
They don't have Picard in Star Trek
Different
Discovery,
show.
do they?
Yeah, it's a different show entirely.
That
Wait, which
was
one
Different
is-
show, different time period.
Where did 7 of 9 show up just now? Which
That was in
series?
Picard.
That was in Picard as well. I know nothing
Yes.
about Star Trek Discovery.
Same.
Okay. To prevent any kind of spoilers,
I've
Star
spoiled.
Trek Discovery's most recent season has been significantly better written, I feel, than the previous seasons. I feel like the previous seasons really tried to shoehorn it into something that I don't think they needed to shoehorn it into, and I'm really glad that they're growing from that.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to spoil it for anybody.
Fun fact: that show is shot in Tirana.
Toronto.
Tirana.
I thought it was shot in
Toronto.
space.
Toronto is space.
No,
Because Earth-
Toronto's just like the other end of the 401. It's the worst
No.
place you could go.
The Earth is on space. Toronto
Well,
is on
here's
Earth.
the thing.
Earth is in space. Therefore, Toronto is space.
You know how I know that space is better than Toronto? Because there ain't no 401 in space. Fuck the 401.
I gotta say, driving the 401 was really stressful.
It's
why,
horrible.
why were you there?
Yeah, why were you there?
I've visited Toronto in the past to go visit family and stuff. So the
Ah,
401
okay.
is
Yeah, fuck the 401.
familiar-ish, but
I had to live the 401.
I have something else to contribute about sort of like the GTA in general, and like it has to do with like the highways and stuff, but it has nothing to do with any of the previous topics.
Oh?
But it was really interesting to me.
Oh?
In Toronto, there was a woman who was a lawyer, and an insurance company, car insurance company, hired her to investigate tow trucks in the Toronto area, because it turns out there was a scam going on by quote unquote a tow truck mafia in
What?
Toronto and the GTA area, because obviously it's high traffic and there's a lot of where there's a lot of road, there's probably a lot of busted cars. And the general gist of it was that people who worked at tow truck companies would go in and tow your vehicle. This is, by the way, as far as I could tell, it didn't really affect the consumer that much, like the car owner, for example. But this person was hired to investigate the tow truck mafia, who would go pick up the busted cars, damaged vehicles, or whatever. They would then take them to unscrupulous mechanics of some sort, who were also part of this. And then they would tally up the damage and then add some more money to that tally.
Some more.
Then submit it to the insurance company. And because the insurance companies don't have a lot of ways to verify that information, they just had to take it at face value for years and basically pay out this money to the mechanic who did the work and the tow truck operator who got the cars to the mechanics. And it got so crazy that the lady that I was talking about, the lawyer who did the investigation, had to get she had to become part of like a witness protection program. She had to shut down her business, her practice, because the tow truck mafia were actually threatening her and her co-workers with like death threats and like actual like drive-by shootings and stuff.
Holy
Dear God.
And that is your interesting fact of the day. Look it up on Google. You can write Toronto Mafia tow truck or some other combination of those 4 words, and I'm sure you'll get the full story. But that is the gist of it, and I read that earlier today, and I didn't think I would recite it.
That's the kind of psychopathic driver that the 401 breeds right there, I tell you what.
Jeez. That's almost as interesting as the weird counterfeit? Yeah, counterfeit deep dish pizza here in Calgary.
What?
Yeah.
Can we talk about that next time? Can
Okay,
we save that topic? Because I need to know more about this.
Sure.
Yes, we absolutely can.
But yes, that's also amazing because I live between 2 deep dish pizza places downtown here. So I'd love to know more about it.
Okay.
Next time
That
on the
can
next
be done.
episode of the Otafest Podcast. Anyways, thank you again for listening. Thank you for supporting our extra live stream. Again, if you want to donate while we're offline, you can. Just go to otafest.com/extralife. It was great to be on the podcast again and great to talk about Extra Life and all the other fun things like a tow truck mafia. Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.